The journey into the mysterious origins of Freemasonry. Part 2 begins. You'll be surprised how deep these roots go. Welcome to the second chapter. Singularity wraps every corner of the room like a thick fog, while the cold discipline of these written rules slowly drags you deeper into a more closed, more shadowed awakening, toward the dark chambers of that celebrated age of enlightenment, where the light of reason only shines within absolute secrecy. And that is where you are going. Now, imagine a candidate being locked into that small cell called the Chamber of Reflection, just moments before being admitted into the Brotherhood. On the walls, a single Latin word, vitriol, the initials of a condensed sentence. Its meaning, roughly, go into the earth, find the hidden stone there. If you can dissolve it, you will have dissolved yourself. Inside the room, a skull, a piece of dry bread, a bowl of salt, and nothing else. Pitch darkness, absolute silence. And only one thing is expected of this man, to write his own will. For today's modern person, always connect, always waiting for a notification, genuinely terrified of being alone. This might look like a brutal, pointless punishment, but in my view, it is precisely the opposite. This is not a punishment. This is a gift. Perhaps the very thing today's person needs most. You are now in that cool room, surrounded on every side by narrow stone walls, pressing in silently. The trembling flame of a single candle transforms the moisture stains on the walls into enormous, shifting shadows. The sweet, faintly scorched scent of melting beeswax fills your nose, blending with the cold, aged smell that only centuries-old stone carries. Unlike the modern person who fills every moment with a post, a notification, or the noisy search for validation, you are here alone, with nothing but the steady, heavy rhythm of your own heartbeat. No one else, no other sound. You stare at the skull resting on the table. Empty eye socket, no expression, yet it says something to you. The brevity of life, how fleeting the ego is, how momentary, nothing more than a speck of dust. How much have you protected until today? How much have you defended? And how much of it was truly worth protecting? The exhausting pace of the present, turning every moment into a success story, every day into an opportunity to show off, stays completely outside when this small room's door shut. The door closed, and with it, everything closed. As you dip the rough quill into the ink, your fingertips feel the fibrous, dry texture of the parchment. Every word you write lightens you slightly, as if a burden from your soul is being transferred onto that page. Today we get the answer to every question within seconds, from the cold pixels of a screen. Back then, to reach an inner truth, one had to wait for hours, perhaps days, in this pitch darkness, and descend into the deepest corridors of the mind. You are in a silence so complete that you can actually hear each grain of sand falling through the hourglass mounted on the wall. You genuinely hear it, that thin, constant, peaceful sound. The great rationalists of the Age of Enlightenment believed that truth only reveals itself when all worldly noise falls silent. And right now, you two are sheltered beneath the protective wings of that ancient silence, worlds away from this modern life, where privacy is seen as a flaw and total transparency is forced upon us. You are wrapped in the quiet dignity that secrecy provides. The sharpness of the salt on the table reaches your nose. The plainness of the bread opens something in your eye. These are the most basic needs of life, and the most open doorways to an unpretentious wisdom. Imagine a thinker who entered this room in the mid-18th century, in the cellars beneath the dim streets of Paris. That man felt what rebirth truly means here, and right now you feel the same thing. That longing flows through your veins like a quiet river. Darkness here is not your enemy. It is a compassionate womb separating you from your old self and preparing you for a new life. Unlike the sleepless nights beneath the bright but utterly cold lights of the modern world, this dim cell invites you into the most serene phase of a waking dream. Look for a moment at those small vials representing sulfur and mercury. The alchemist's effort to turn matter into gold was, in truth, the effort to purify the human soul. They were never really trying to make gold. They were trying to transform themselves. You are at the very center of that alchemical transformation now. You are on the verge of becoming a perfect building block from a rough stone. Your breathing slows. Your eyelids grow heavy in this soft darkness. Your mind begins to move beyond the solid walls. Each thought sharpens like a drop of ink and takes on meaning. In that era, a man who came out of this room had begun to see the outside world, not only with his eyes, but with his mind and heart as well. And as you draw the silence of this ancient room deep into your bones, you notice the last restless voices inside you going quiet, one by one. And it is in this very silence that the ripening ideas slowly break through the wall walls of this narrow room, across the ocean, through that black and resolute ink flowing from the tip of a quill, about to become the unshakable sentences of freedom and equality, toward the indelible pages of the American Declaration of Independence. Philadelphia, 1776. Picture that sweltering, humid July evening of 1776. A man dipping his quill into the inkwell just before signing a document that would be considered treason against the state, and gripping that quill with a steady hand, fully knowing that the ink could very well be his own death warrant. In today's world of risk-free and anonymous digital commentary, where people share their opinions hidden behind a screen, this might seem to you like an almost unreal, extraordinary kind of courage. You are now standing before the heavy, dark oak table at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. The buzzing of flies drifting in through the windows and the creaking wheels of horse-drawn carriage outside make the tense yet dignified silence inside all the more pronounced. Your nose fills with the faintly rusty, metallic, smoky scent of freshly opened oak gall ink. This scent is something entirely different from the fleeting, soulless characters we produce today by pressing plastic keys or swiping on touchscreen. It is the most tangible proof that a thought has taken on physical form and been etched into history. You feel the lightness of the quill and the coldness of the metal nib at its tip between your fingertips. When you dip the quill into the inkwell, the tiny circular splash of black ink against the glass quiets all the noise in your mind for a single instant. Only that sound exists in that moment, nothing else. You can see the fibers of the thick, rough parchment, that sacred vellum made from calfskin. Every word written on it is irreversible. No erasing, no correcting. This is work requiring patience and craftsmanship that tolerates no mistake. You look at the silver square and compass resting on the table. Here, in this dim hall, they are not merely architectural tools. They stand as the silent witnesses of the secret brotherhood that laid the moral foundations of a new nation. The fact that at least several of the 56 signatories of the Declaration, including George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, were Masonic masters whispers to you how reason and liberty were organized within the silence of a lodge during that era. Instead of today's social networks that turn everything into global noise within seconds, back then, ideas spread at the speed of letters, carried on horseback in secret handshakes, slower, but taking root far more deeply. You hear that faint scratching, scraping sound as the quill meets the paper. The ink seeps slowly into the fibers of the page. It spreads like a vein, and by drying, it becomes permanent. Paris, 1789. A hazy Paris evening in 1789, smelling of gunpowder and stale wine. You are descending into the cellar of a desolate building at the end of a narrow alley. The cobblestones beneath your feet tremble faintly with the footsteps of the revolutionary crowds outside. But here, in this underground shelter, you are enveloped in complete stillness. Unlike the loud slogans echoing everywhere, at every moment in modern life, all you hear here is the deep sound of breathing and the faint hiss rising from the wicks of candles. The cold seeping through your coarse wool coat merges with the damp air of the cellar, settling onto your skin like a heavy layer. In the late 18th century, the road leading to the fall of a kingdom was paved, not in the gilded halls of palace, but in these dim and airless lodges. History books don't quite tell you this, but right now, you are here, sitting at this table, in the middle of it all. You breathe in the smell of ink from the Declaration resting on the table. 3 words are written on: liberty, equality, fraternity. Today we take these concepts for granted, as textbook knowledge, but in your reality at that moment, these words are as heavy and as dangerous as a death sentence. To speak them, to follow them, could cost you your life. You hear the rustle of the leather apron that the man sitting next to you has pulled over his silk shirt. He is a nobleman. Outside, he has a title, an estate, a castle. But at this table, he is simply a brother. He shares the same fate as you. Stepping away from the world of the present, which divides everything into classes and polarizes people with digital identities, you surrender to the strange and deep equality of this smoky room. The shadow of the candlestick, the room's only source of light, roams across the old maps on the wall like a giant hand. You imagine the dazzling hall of mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, and the bare cellar walls where you stand now. The gulf between them, in that era, power hid behind elaborate wigs and gold-embroidered coats. Here, you find power only in bare reason and a secret handshake. Every word you whisper in this room reaches only the few ears you trust, and there, It becomes the seed of a revolution. That small signal you make with your fingers as you shake someone's hand becomes the only compass that tells you who will help you in the chaos outside. You feel the cold black stone in your palm. The voice of your conscience is clearer than ever. This stone symbolizes the collapse of the old world and the birth of a new order. For a historian looking back at the beginning of the 19th century, the revolution was a mass movement. But for you, this revolution is nothing more than the resolve of 12 men gathered around a candle flame. Is that faint burning smell in the air coming from old regime documents being burned in the street or from the fireplace? You can't tell. And that uncertainty, strangely enough, pulls you even deeper into that moment. The dull thud of the black stone dropping into the pouch is the moment the door to the past closes. You are now a traveler on a road with no turning back. As silence wraps the cellar like a fog, you drift through the shadows of Paris's bloody yet hopeful streets. And slowly, step by step, you rise far above all these buildings, revolutions, and wars that bear the touch of human hand. The all-seeing eye, your gaze turns toward the apex of a pyramid. Toward that eye that misses nothing, watching everything from beyond time. The all-seeing eye, standing motionless for hours before that enormous painted eye hanging at the highest point on the eastern wall of Allah, feeling that gaze work its way into the darkest corridors of your soul, might, amid today's AI cameras and data tracking systems that monitor every movement, feel like an ancient surveillance nightmare. That unsettling feeling of being watched. But wait a moment, in that era, this eye did not represent a punisher. It represented the guardianship of the universe's great order, a conscience that never sleeps. Not a gaze that watches you, but a gaze that holds you. You are standing directly in front of that pyramid right now, surrounded by a dusty and heavy silence. Your gaze slowly drifts upward along the pyramid's unfinished stepped body. These stones are cold, rough, and each one bears the patient marks of human labor. Compared to the impatient architecture of the modern world which builds and consumes everything in seconds, this unfinished pyramid whispered to you that life is never truly complete. Another stone must always be added. A finished pyramid no longer grows. An unfinished pyramid, however, is still breathing. When you see the eye inside the triangle floating at the apex, independent from the body, hovering in space, all the noise in your mind falls silent, one sound at a time. This eye is nothing like the tired, vacant eyes that stare at you from today's screen. This is that ancient gaze, made of light itself, transcending time and space. In the 18th century, what a philosopher felt looking at this symbol in the smoky, candlelit libraries of the Age of Enlightenment was not so much the presence of an all-seeing God, but of an all-ordering architect. Unlike the data centers of the present day, that monitor everything but understand nothing, here you take refuge in the profound awareness of something that understands everything but judges nothing. The golden rays of light spreading from the edges of the triangle seem to touch your skin and warm you. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of this geometric perfection. Each step of the pyramid represents one of your virtues, or one of your flaws. As you climb from the very bottom toward that eye, you are not really rising out, you are rising within yourself. How hollow and meaningless the modern person's desire to climb social hierarchies and chase virtual applause looks in the face of this pyramid's honest stones. When you reach the light at the very top, you realize you are standing at the most transparent point of your own conscience. For a merchant at the beginning of the 19th century, looking at this seal stamped on the American dollar, this symbol was a guarantee not just of a nation, but of honest commerce and universal justice. The light is so clear and still that time's fluid nature solidifies here, turning to stone. Each ray of light illuminates a dark corner of your mind. Your fears, your anxieties, and that never-ending worry about the future dissolve one by one beneath this absolute gaze. While today, we try to protect our every secret with a password or a biometric scan, here you stand completely exposed, with nothing but an honest heart and an open mind. And yet, equally safe. This I see is not only what you have done, but also your deepest intentions, the ones you wanted to act on but silenced. This quiet acceptance grants your soul the immense peace of a cathedral thousands of years old. Even when you close your eye, the image of that golden triangle keeps glowing on the screen of your mind. You are now a part of that great structure, that unfinished pyramid. Not just a stone, you are becoming a consciousness that understands the structure itself. Into the world of symbols. Now, enter the world of symbols. Staring for hours at that rough, jagged, crude piece of stone placed before you in the dim corner of a lot, feeling every bump and ridge of that stone with your finger, searching for the flaws within your own soul and the roughness of that stone. the rough stone, the symbols, and the third degree in a world that perfects everything with a filter, buries its flaws behind pixels, and cannot stand the sight of real imperfection. This might seem like a pointless and peculiar effort to you, but isn't this stone you? Right now, you are standing before that stone, waiting, with a heavy wooden mallet in one hand and a sharp chisel in the other. As your mind tries to decode the silent language of the symbols on the wall, the air around you grows thick with the heavy, dusty scent of a library thousands of years old. You drift completely away from the shallow speed of modern life, which reduces everything to emojis and surface-level signs. Sink into the vast depths hidden within a single shape. In the 18th century, the shining star a Freemason gazed upon was not merely an object in the sky. It was the light of conscience within a person, a light that never goes out. You see that light now, burning quietly in the darkest room. Inside, your fingers trace the carved relief of a beehive hanging on the wall. You feel how each cell is woven together in perfect or hexagonal, flawless, no mistakes, no gap. With this single touch, you understand that even the smallest piece in the universe is part of a greater plan. While today we lose ourselves in networks and digital connect, back then a beehive symbol was the most powerful seal representing the silent, sincere loyalty people held for one another. Grains of sand fall through the old hourglass on the table with a faint whisper. Time is no longer measured in seconds for you. It is measured in thoughts that slowly ripen. Unlike the digital countdowns of the present that drown everything in urgency, each one of these grains of sand whispers to you that patience is the highest virtue. The ancient wisdom that has filtered down from the Egyptian hieroglyphs of 3,000 years before. Christ is now soaked into every curve of the wooden chair you sit on. The old scent of wood and leather filling your nose quiets the last remaining noise in your mind, one sound at a time. As you slowly set the wooden mallet down on the table, the echo of that dull thud carries your life's reckoning within it. The shallow piles of information that the modern world consumes in seconds, stripped of all depth, fall completely flat against the unshakable, weighty truths hidden behind these symbols. Each symbol is like a seal pressed into your soul. One leg of the compass reminds you of steady. The angle of the square speaks of honesty. You are no longer simply someone who looks. You are becoming a sage who reads the hidden signature of the great order in everything you see. Watching the dance of darkness and light on that checkered floor, you feel deep in your bones that life is built from nothing more than the perfect balance of these two opposites. Without black, white has no meaning. Without darkness, light cannot be understood. Your breathing falls into perfect harmony with the absolute stillness of the room, and your body takes on the quiet dignity of that heavy stone. The weight of responsibility felt by a master studying these symbols in a lodge in the 19th century now settles onto your shoulders, not as a burden, but as something peaceful. These symbols are no longer just images. They are keys that allow you to speak with the great architecture of the universe. And passing through the doors, those keys unlock. You walk toward the threshold of a deeper, more shattering, more absolute awakening. You are leaving the world of the theoretical behind. You are heading toward the heart of the greatest secret, toward the highest degree where a person confronts their own death and rebirth. The third degree, being suddenly laid inside a coffin while blindfolded during a ritual, or having a pitch-black funeral shroud draped over you and sinking into a death-like silence while all your brothers stand around. In today's shallow world, where every achievement is celebrated with applause and certificates, and rising means nothing more than a change of title, this might feel unsettling, even disturbing, maybe even absurd. But think about it. This ritual is not a punishment. It is a moment created so that a person can, just once in their life, truly experience death, because someone who has never known death cannot fully understand life. Right now, you are at the deepest point of that dark wait, feeling in your own body the tragic end of Hiram Abiff, the chief architect of Solomon's Temple. Your back presses against the cold, hard floor of the lodge. That physical discomfort serves to shed the old, worn-out parts of your soul. Every hard surface strips something away from inside you. Unlike the modern person who is always rushing somewhere and feels compelled to document every moment to prove it happened, you are here completely still, nameless and silent, resting in your own inner grave. For a candidate rising to this degree in the 18th century, this symbolic death was the most sacred moment, the moment when selfishness and ambition were buried in the earth. Your old self is dying. Someone new is about to be born, and you are ready for this, because the one who has nothing left to lose has everything left to gain. And right now, You are at exactly that point, right on that threshold. When you close your eyelids, at first, nothing happens. Only that dense, crushing blackness settles in everywhere. All the colors of the outside world, all its hum and noise, that exhausting chaos, all of it slowly recedes, as if someone turned down the volume. What reaches your nose in that moment? The heavy scent of stale incense, and just beneath it, almost imperceptible, the cold dampness of moist earth. The mind wanders involuntarily. Where is this place? You feel as though you are deep in the farthest corner of an ancient cave, somewhere the noise of the world cannot even reach. Somehow, strangely, this feeling is a relief. What do we think of today when we say the word career? A bigger title, salary with a higher number attached to it. That's all. But here, inside this ritual, you are carrying the exact opposite. The higher you rise, the heavier your shoulders grow, more responsibility, deeper silence. And the strange thing is, this weight doesn't crush, it anchors. In the dusty lodges of the 19th century, the ceremony marking a master's rebirth was never random. It represented the resistance of reason against brute force, quiet, dignified resistance. The strongest person was not always the one who threw the hardest punch. Sometimes the strongest was simply the one left standing, the one who fell before they could be swept away. There, in that darkness, you wait motionless, and after a while, something strange happens. You feel in your body, not real, but created by your mind, as if they are truly there, the jolts of 3 separate blows, one by one, hard and merciless. The blow of ignorance, the blow of fanaticism, the blow of greed. These 3 make you feel as though you have been physically knocked to the ground, yet at the same time, in a way that makes no rational sense, they lift you higher, as if falling and rising are 2 sides of the same movement. The silence around you is so profound that calling it silence feels inadequate. It's a tangible thing, almost something you could reach out and touch. So dense that the faint rustle of someone's cloth trousers finds a vast echo in your mind. The tiny crackle in the wick of a candle burning in a far corner of the room sounds to your ear, as loud as a door slamming. In today's world, silence is treated as a deficiency, a sign that something is missing. But right now you understand that silence can actually be armor. That immense, invisible shield that protects you from the noise outside and gives you the chance to finally listen to what is coming from within. Then a hand, it grips your wrist, firm and decisive. That famous grip, the lion's paw. And in that moment, you understand, this is not just a hand. It is the continuation of a promise stretching back centuries, extended by dozens of hands that lived through that same night, lay in that same dark, felt those same jolts. This is a word of salvation, given without word, and perhaps for that very reason, all the more powerful. You feel them at 5 different points. Your brother's hand. Their warmth touches your skin first, then works its way in. From within that cold, heavy, grave-like silence, they slowly pull you up toward life, toward light. This is the direct opposite of the modern world's contradiction, which crowns the individual like a king and then abandons them to a profound loneliness. Here you are, a link in a chain, an unbreakable, inseparable chain. And this feeling arrives with an unexpected kind of beauty. Your breathing changes. Without even realizing it, you fall into the same rhythm as the hands lifting you. Your body shakes free of that heavy silence. It grows lighter. In the 17th century, did a stonemason moving from journeyman to master feel the weight of this responsibility this deeply on his shoulder? Most likely, yes. And now that same weight is placed on yours. But this time, it feels peaceful. Not like pressure, like a coat cut precisely for you. You are no longer searching for the lost word. But you are not exactly giving up the search either. You are moving beyond. You rise to your feet with a wisdom that has stopped being someone who seeks the word and has become the word itself. And when the lights begin to slowly kindle, what opens before your eyes is not just a room. It is the reflection of a soul that has made peace again with the perfect grand architecture of the universe. Your reflection. But your mind doesn't stop there. It never stops. Powered by that individual awakening, your thoughts seep outward from the walls of the lodge, deep into the fabric of society. And from there, you drift silently toward the soot-stained hands of coalwork, toward revolutionary fingers, toward the misty mountains of Italy, toward the gunpowder-scented whispers of secret society. Imagine a man who covers his face with coal dust, pitch black, and he sees a purification in that blackness, in that soot. He believes the darkness covering him cleanses every kind of filth. Looking at this from today's filtered, sterilized, smooth, Dover world, it seems genuinely strange, perhaps even primitive. But wait, Try to see it through the eyes of someone doing this in the initiation ceremony of a secret society, someone risking their life. Then you see something different. You are there right now. The early 19th century, northern Italy, the Apennine Mountains, foggy, steep, deserted, one of the most secluded corners of the forest. The first thing that reaches your nose is wood smoke, sharp and sooty, the kind that stings slightly in the back of your throat. Then the wet, fresh scent of pine needles, almost like a breath of air. Today, political ideas circulate on screens. A tweet, a short video, a story. A single act of dissent dissolves instantly into the noise of thousands. You know nothing of any of that right now. All you hear are the whispers of the forest, and in the distance, a thin sliver of light leaking from behind a tree. A charcoal burner's hut. To anyone passing by, it looks like an ordinary shelter. But for you, this hut is the heart of freedom, the address of absolute silence. A branch snaps under your foot. That thin, dry crack echoes through the forest with an unexpected depth. Every step, every sound, every smell carries meaning here, because there is nothing else to distract your attention. Only this moment exists. In that era, these charcoal workers were known as the Carbonari. The Carbonari, the charcoal burners, the language they used to conceal their ideas, the dusty, sooty, deliberately vague language of the trade, served as a shield. Today, everything demands transparency. Secrecy raises suspicion. But here, within this society, every password and every signal is a seal protecting a person's life. The most sacred guarantee. You push open the heavy wooden door of the hut. It resists for a moment, then gives way, and the dim warmth that spills out wraps around you with unexpected tenderness, like the warmth of a mother. 3 branches hang on the wall. They point to faith, hope, and charity. At the center of the room, a fire on the verge of dying out. Crimson, exhausted, but still there. Just like the ideals of these people, never quite going out entirely. You exhale. Along with the freezing mountain air, the endless social anxieties crowding your mind somehow make their way out. They seem to evaporate. The bond between the people who held each other as good cousins in this room in the 1820s is nothing that can be compared to today's fleeting friendships built on self-interest and instant gain. Even the comparison feels wrong. They were like a movable stone. Today's bonds are often nothing more than paper. You rest your hand on the table, sooty, rough. You feel the hardness of the wood grain under your fingertips, and at one spot, the dried, sticky trace of wine. In the face of the exhaustion of a modern world that floods every surface with sterile, blinding light, where everything inside that glare somehow looks fake, the safe ambiguity of this dim room feels more real to you. There are no titles here, no king, no peasant, only people made equal by the blackness of coal, breathing together for a single ideal. The table of brotherhood, the great chasm, and the black briefcase whispers rise. They merge with the shadows in the corners of the room and flow into history's slow, deep river. You are now a part of not only the fate of a nation, but also the great revolution within your own inner world. Far from the noise of the arrogant, all-knowing modern person, you surrender entirely to the ancient wisdom of the forest and the fire. The Carbonari's gunpowder-scented oaths dissolve into a melody within you. But this melody plays not to put you to sleep. It plays to invite you into a far deeper awakening. Your eyelids grow heavy with the warmth of this safe, smoky room, and the artificial, consuming noise of the outside world gradually recedes. It can no longer reach you. Your very being slowly dissolves in the dignified silence of this secret gathering, and the revolutionary fire in your mind gradually gives way to a softer, more nourishing, more human warmth. The harsh winds of the mountains, calm. The door of the hut closes quietly, and you drift away from those dark forest paths, carried somewhere else, to the most joyful and most sincere moment of brotherhood, to that silent circle of friendship where glasses touch and eyes speak instead of words, to the calm, fulfilling atmosphere of the lodge table. Calling a heavy glass top, striking it against the table with a certain force before taking a sip, like a rehearsal for a cannon fire. The first time you hear this, in the middle of today's rushed dinner tables, plastic cups, and phone screens, it might seem strange to you, even a little ridiculous, like a childish game ritual. But back then, that strike, that rhythmic, deliberate blow, carried a different meaning. It was the most joyful and dignified proof that every soul at the table beat at the same frequency, breathed the same air. A synchrony. Wordless, but powerful. You step out of the lodge. The complex symbols in your head, The heavy impression left by the ceremony are set aside for now. The smells coming from the kitchen draw you in. First, the light, crisp scent of freshly toasted bread. Then that deep, appetite-stirring aroma of meat fat that has been slow cooking over a heavy flame for hours, blending with spices. A dim but warm dining hall. Nothing more. Today, we mostly eat alone, in front of the television or staring at our phones. Like a mechanical process. Intake fuel. Move on. But here, every clink of a fork is a separate note. Every ring of a glass is part of a great brotherhood anthem. They echo through the room, bouncing back off the walls. You touch the tablecloth. White, clean, smooth. The U-shape of the table is no coincidence. It exists so that everyone from the most senior master to the newest apprentice can look directly into each other's faces. Unobstructed gazes. That bridge built without a single word spoken, a silent bridge of equality. In the 18th century, these tables were not set merely to fill stomachs. They were also set to ease the dense philosophical air of the lodge, to lighten that heavy mental load a little. Friendly conversation, cheerful sharing. A pace worlds away from today's exhaustion of turning every moment into productivity, speed, and the urgency of keeping up. You grip your glass. The crystal is cold and heavy in your palm. That weight reminds you of the tangibility, the realness of that moment, and of the unshakable strength of the bond between you and everyone around you. Today, we might have thousands of digital followers, thousands of virtual friends, but back then, the brush of the man beside you pressing his elbow against yours was something else entirely. Against all the storms of the outside world, that small, ordinary contact became the safest shelter in the world. There is a scent of olive oil seeping from the oil lamps in the room. It mingles with the deep, characteristic scent of old oak furniture. It wraps around you. The steam rising from the food on your plate drifts toward your face, and in place of the sharp political debates that are forbidden inside the lodge, here there are cheerful but always measured whispers. Far from the suffocating modern habit of turning every dinner table into a battlefield, a business meeting, or a war zone, this is the plain joy of simply existing and sharing without pretense. The ritual of raising 7 glasses begins. With each sip, you toast a hero from history, a virtue. The deep relaxation that the warm liquid creates as it passes through your throat dissolves the last points of resistance in your mind. One by one, the immense sense of belonging that a stonemason felt sitting down at this table in the late 19th century after an exhausting day's work now spreads through every cell of your body as a wave of your eyes sink into the candle flame. The silver reflections in the wine glasses dance. Time has lost its significance. Every laugh softens against the high ceiling, echoes, and returns to you like a lullaby. Today's disconnected, individualized life, where every second is consumed by the urgency of being validated, truly loses its meaning in the face of the silent, ancient wholeness at this table. Completely and entirely. But tables always end. The last candle melts slowly and gives way to a more serious, more weighty thought. The glasses are set down on the table one final time, slowly and gently. This joyful gathering quietly fades, and the mind drifts somewhere else. To how this ancient structure split in two over the centuries. To the great fracture that occurred between the hard rock of dogma and the flexible wind of reason. To that deep, silent divide between traditional Freemasonry and modern Freemasonry. Think about this. To declare a man you have worked shoulder to shoulder with for years in the same lodge, a man you have sweated beside as a regular, and reject him like a stranger, simply because of a small change in a word spoken during a ritual or a slight shift in the manner of a handshake. Looking at this from today's digital world, which instantly absorbs every difference and brushes off every disagreement with a few emojis, this seems incredibly rigid, almost astonishingly stubborn. But there, in that era, this matter did not look that way. You are now in the mid-18th century, on a damp, stone-scented street in London. Before you stands an enormous building, 2 doors. On one side, paradoxically, rests the quiet of the founders, known as the Moderns, despite their roots stretching further back in time. On the other side, the noise of the ambitious and traditionalist group, who called themselves the Ancients, echoes outward. The ground beneath your feet feels as if it is about to crack down the middle under the weight of these two opposing views. Stepping away from the exhausting dynamic of the modern world, which turns every disagreement into a pick-a-side fight within seconds, you surrender to the heavy, dignified tremor of this historical divide. The argument that broke out over how a ritual should be performed was not an ordinary dispute in that era. It was treated with all the gravity of determining the fate of an empire. You feel a hand moving across dusty parchments in your mind. The rough, stiff cover of the Ahaiman Rizan, published in 1751, rests in your palm. The ancients accused the moderns. You are simplifying the rituals. You are spilling ancient secrets into the street. The moderns countered that change, in the light of reason, was both inevitable and necessary. Standing in direct contrast to the present, which updates every rule in real time and bends every principle to circumstance. You realize here that every single word stands as firm as a castle wall. Candlelight seeps through one door, yellow, soft, warm. What seeps through the other is sharper, colder, almost white. You sway in the exact space between these two lights. In the vast emptiness of time, joining a lodge in late 18th century Europe was not merely a matter of joining a community. It also meant making a definitive decision about how one would define the grand architect of the universe. Today, we carry our beliefs like profile labels. We change them, update them, swap them out. But in that era, this choice could sever a person's entire social standing. All their bonds of brotherhood, in an instant. The Grand Master's gavel finds a more polite, more rational echo when it strikes in the Hall of the Moderns. In the Hall of the Ancients, the echo is older, harder. You listen to the rhythm of both sounds at the same time, hearing both, feeling both. You take refuge, not in the easy comfort of solving everything with a middle ground, but in the noble passion that lives inside this deep and sincere conflict. In the early 19th century, the two groups finally merged. The United Grand Lodge of England was formed, but until that union was reached, the chill of this silent war had worked its way into the bones of every member. As your eyes follow those two paths, stretching in opposite directions through the dark, you understand, in truth, both roads lead to the same light. To the human effort to chisel oneself, to the will to turn a rough stone into a temple. But this split did not stay confined within the walls of the lodges. The suspicious, fearful gaze of the outside world crept into everything. The shallow perspective of the modern world, which sees every secret society as either a threat or an object of entertainment, turned the void created by this historical fracture into a vast darkness. As the doors of the lodges slowly close, the whispers of the crowd outside begin to grow, and your mind is carried along toward the first great fury that saw Masons as devils or traitors, toward the cold, unsettling winds at the birth of the anti-Masonic movement. 1826. New York, a foggy, windy, restless town. A man announces that he intends to reveal his lodge's secrets in a book, and in the middle of the night, he is abruptly abducted. He is never found again. Thousands of people pour into the squares afterward. Masonic aprons are thrown into the fire. They catch, burn, turn to ash. In today's world, every piece of information is consumed instantly, and every scandal flares up and dies out within a few days. But in that time, in that place, this disappearance triggered something else entirely. It was such a jarring, such an unsettling beginning that it left a deep mark. You are now standing in the shadows, far from that angry crowd, at the base of a damp wall. The heavy, suffocating smell of burning fabric reaches your nose. The smoky air of damp paper, in direct contrast to the sterile order of modern life, where every act of criticism is delivered from the safe distance of a digital screen. Here, people's fear is real and physical. You could reach out and touch it. The muddy streets beneath your feet are grooved with the wheel tracks of horse-drawn carriages. With every step, you sink a little deeper into that uncertainty. In that era, in the foggy states of America, anything that was secret was considered a threat. Every closed door, a potential center of conspiracy. As you pass a newspaper stand, you see the headline Anti-Masonic Inquirer glinting in the trembling candlelight. The sharp throat-catching smell of fresh ink mixes with the cold air. It hits you like a cold awakening. Today, conspiracy theories are content, something to click on. You scroll past them, but in that era, a person known to be a Mason could have their entire social standing, their entire credibility, destroyed overnight. The whispers on the street merge with the howl of the wind. They reach your ears like warnings. The crude, unsparing gaze of today, which sees every act of privacy as a security vulnerability and treats transparency as a virtue, takes on its most concrete, most unforgiving shape before you hear. In the dark corners of this town, you turn up your collar, you lean your head forward and keep walking. And in that moment, you understand, it is not only the Masons who are under siege. Individual freedom is too. Privacy is too. The right of human dignity to be protected in silence. Your breath leaves small white clouds in the cold air. They hang there, like ghosts. On those harsh winter nights, as locks were bolted onto the doors of lodges, the fire of brotherhood kept burning in minds. And in places far deeper than that, your very being slowly dissolves in the heavy, smoky atmosphere of this feeling of being surrounded. The noise of the town subsides. The ashes of the burning aprons are scattered by the wind. From the Thames to the Tiber, from one end of the ocean to the other, and you peel away from these old-world fears and are pulled toward a far darker, far deeper place. A place where secrecy has moved beyond being a mere virtue and has become a colossal political and economic force. Down into the cellars beneath the sun-drenched streets of Italy. To the P2 Lodge, the one said to have determined the fates of nations. Into the cold, metallic, poisonous silence of modern conspiracies. A briefcase, 962 names inside. And these names wrap around the entire circulatory system of a nation like a spider's web. They are discovered, suddenly, without warning. Amid today's transparent data leaks and digital exposes, this might seem archaic to you. Perhaps nothing more than a footnote in history. But it is also a deeply unsettling reality. You are now on a cool, damp, Italian morning in 1981. The misty hills of Tuscany. The silent corridors of Villa Wanda. Your footsteps make almost no sound on the polished marble floor. This silence pulls you toward the invisible, deep channels of the state. You smell old leather, dusty files, and the distinctive, slightly bitter aroma of a cold Italian espresso. Far from the virtual universe of the modern world, where everything is uploaded to the cloud and information is fleeting and impossible to pin down. Here, you hold the physical weight of paper in your hands, the tangible texture of that responsibility. The sharp click of the metal clasps on the black briefcase as you open them cuts through the room's absolute stillness like a blade. And then the lists. A chief of general staff, a minister, a media mogul. As you read the names, you feel deep in your bones just how silently and secretly power can be wielded. Today we measure power by follower counts, by the glare of screens. But here, power was something else. Nothing more than those silent names written on yellowed paper, visible only to a chosen few pairs of eyes. Nothing else. And that is precisely why it was so powerful. The shallow noise of the present, which turns everything into a trending topic within seconds, carrying no depth whatsoever, falls completely flat against the heavy silence of this room. Utterly ineffective. You slowly close the briefcase. The sound of metal meeting metal echoes through the room like a seal being pressed, and your mind goes even further. Beyond these local secrets, toward a far wider shadow. Toward that enormous structure said to govern the entire planet from a single hand. Toward the greatest question that lies beyond time and space. Toward the whispers of the New World Order. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders sink a little lower under the weight of this immense secret. But this sinking does not break you, does not drain you. On the contrary, it plants you more firmly, more securely, into the depths of this historical weight. Each name settles into place like a puzzle piece, and the picture grows clearer. This story does not belong to Italy alone. It is a small but decisive piece of a far greater plan, one that crosses oceans and spans centuries. The exhausting, shallow, noise-filled current of modern life, always straining to simplify everything, falls completely powerless in the face of the dignified and unsettling depth of this dark room. As you slowly close that black briefcase, the sound of metal meeting metal echoes through the room like a seal being pressed. And that sound, for a long time, keeps echoing still. The tower, the pillars, and the closing of the chain. Now you go even further, far beyond local secrets, the cellars of a single country, a single briefcase full of names, toward that immense shadow said to govern the entire planet from a single hand, toward the greatest question that transcends even time and space itself, toward the whispers of the New World Order. Think about this for a moment. In the deepest silence of the night, somewhere out there, imagine a handful of powerful people gathered around an enormous world map. They hold a silver pin, and with it, they quietly press a small seal onto each continent. The fates of nations are sealed with nothing more than a whisper. No noise, no debate. Just that silent instant when the pin touches the map. In today's world, every decision is debated on live streams. Every step is reflected on a screen. Everything appears transparent, yet at the same time, everything is impossibly chaotic. When you picture that scene, that silver pin, that map, it might feel like something out of a novel. Distant, strange, smelling of fiction. But right now, you are not that far from it. You are standing at the top of the tallest tower in a major city, behind a glass wall, and below, the city stretches out, millions of points of light glittering like nerve networks. What reaches your nose? The faint ozone smell of a sterile office, freshly brewed coffee, and underneath it, almost imperceptible, a metallic trace, as if steel and electricity have their own particular scent at this altitude. This tower is one of the central hubs of that enormous flow of data, tracking every movement in the modern world through satellites, algorithms, and digital footprints. In the old days, the decisions of a secret council could only reach a kingdom after weeks of travel on horseback. News traveled slowly. Decisions were carried out even more slowly. But now, an intention, a decision passing through your mind right now could travel at the speed of light through fiber optic cables and turn a stock exchange on the other side of the world upside down within seconds. Time has been dissolved. Distance has been dissolved. The physics of power has changed entirely. There is the texture of a soft carpet beneath your feet. That texture feels like the only thing anchoring you to this isolated, serene atmosphere. The endless noise of the city below, the information pollution, the chaotic flow has been transformed, here behind this glass, into absolute stillness. As if this glass lets no sound through, only light. You place your hand on the cold glass surface, smooth, and at your fingertips you sense, ever so faintly, almost imperceptibly, the vibration of the city. The faintest echo of that vast hum created by millions of people, millions of engines, millions of screens, all converging at once. In the 18th century, the great thinkers of the Age of Enlightenment dreamed of a universal brotherhood, a future where humanity would unite through reason, where borders and dogmas would melt away. When you think about the claim that this dream has today been transformed into a global mechanism of control, a strange weight forms inside you. You neither fully believe it nor can you fully dismiss it. In this age, where every choice a modern person makes is being analyzed in a data center somewhere, you are in fact sitting at the silent point, right at the center of that enormous, invisible web. The web where everyone is connected to everyone else. And the wind strikes the corners of the tower, a sharp but distant hum. And for some reason, this sound reminds you of something very old, those secret oaths whispered in dark cellars. Today's power is no longer in swords, nor in heavy seals. It is in invisible whispers and in those cold blue beams of light filtering through screens. Beneath that light, you realize how history has both accelerated and yet never changed in its deepest desire for order. Between a scholar in the Library of Alexandria in the 3rd century BC, trying to make sense of the world, and a technology company today, trying to manage all of that knowledge, there is a surface-level difference. Yes, but at the root, the same desire lies. To grasp order, to hold on to control. Your breathing slows with the thin air of this altitude, a rhythmic kind of peace. Your eyes fix on the highways below, parallel lines of light stretching outward. And for a moment, you imagine they are actually enormous circuit boards etched into the earth. Every intersection, a connection point. Every light, a signal. Everything part of a plan. Every movement, the outcome of a calculation. The chaotic and seemingly random complexity of modern life, when viewed from this summit, takes on the shape of a flawless geometric order. You are no longer simply a witness. You are a part of that great whisper. The weight of that invisible responsibility on your shoulders, strangely enough, makes you lighter inside this stillness, lets you drift. As the city gradually falls asleep, the lights in the tower dim to their lowest level, and you are released into that absolute, global silence. No borders remain. No obstacles. Your mind embraces the entire planet in a single gaze, and then you peel away from the coldness of this glass, this steel, this sterile altitude, toward somewhere far more ancient, toward the very first threshold where everything began, toward the threshold where two immense pillars of universal balance stand guard. The bronze pillars at the entrance of a lodge were said to be hollow inside, and within those hollow spaces, ancient constitutions, secrets, and archives were kept, hidden away to protect them from possible catastrophe, from great fires, from disasters that swallow everything whole. Looking at this from a world that stores its data in invisible clouds and makes information fleeting and impossible to hold, it might seem like an archaic, slightly strange instinct. Why hollow pillars? Why such a laborious method of storage? But then you think, those men knew what was valuable, and they were willing to do whatever it took to protect it. You are now standing right in the center of those two immense masses, Boaz and Yakin, the two pillars representing the entrance to Solomon's temple. And you notice just how different it feels to stand on this narrow sacred threshold. You lift your head. The pomegranate and lily carvings at the tops of the pillars glimmer with a silver sheen in the moonlight. These pillars stand in direct contrast to the transient world of today, where everything is built in a rush and demolished just as quickly, where a building's lifespan is measured in decades. There is an unshakability to them that exists beyond time. They whisper to you the dignified weariness of thousands of years of waiting, as if they have seen everything, as if they know everything will pass. And still they stand. The ground beneath your feet is cool, and the wind passing between these two metal masses gives you a strange feeling, the feeling of being at the center of the universe. The left pillar represents strength, the right pillar represents stability, and you are right in the middle, swaying at the most delicate point of balance between these two opposing but complementary forces. There is no trace here of today's exhausting digital noise, which turns everything black and white, places people at sharp poles, and freezes them there, insisting you are either completely on this side or completely on the other. The symmetry these two pillars provide makes room for both. It includes, it shelters. You press your fingertips to the surface of the bronze, slightly rough, cold, and you sense that silent resonance within the metal, that vibration. When these pillars were being cast, with what kind of serenity did Hiram Abiff pour the molten metal into the molds? In that moment of casting, in that split second when the boiling metal flowed into the mold, there was something entirely different from today's factory line silence. A master craftsman's breath, the tremor of a hand, and every casting imperfection on these pillars, every small irregularity, is precious for precisely that reason. The most honest proof that they belong to this world. You feel the round contours of the pomegranates in your palm. The ancient philosophy of unity and multiplicity is understood through touch, without need for words. The globes at the tops of the pillars stand like silent, tireless advices carrying the full knowledge of the heavens and the earth on their shoulders. Your breathing slows, deepens, surrendering to the long, dark, sheltering shadow these pillars cast on the ground, in complete contrast to the neon lights, the billboards, the blinding artificiality of the modern world. The space between the two pillars is not merely a physical gap. It is the passage tunnel between your past and your future, between your darkness and your light. As you move through this tunnel, you are not simply entering a building. You are taking the first step toward the most hidden, most protected temple of your own soul. In 950 BC, in the dry heat of Jerusalem, did a laborer who took shelter in the shadow of these pillars know this? Did he realize that that physical coolness, that shade, carried this much meaning? Perhaps not. Perhaps he simply sought shelter from the heat. But right now, you are finding the spiritual equivalent of the relief he once felt, somewhere deep inside you. The scent of bronze drifts toward you, mixed with the dampness of the earth. And this combination reminds you of something very old, very familiar, as if you have been here before. As if you are coming home, you slowly close your eyes, and you feel how those two immense guardians bring the spinning world to a stop. Sound cuts out. Movement halts. Only the eternal reassurance of the metal remains. That unshakable silence. You know today's modern person, the one who spends every moment haunted by the anxiety of performing, who constantly feels watched, who must be liked, approved of, seen, about never-ending exhaustion. It melts away completely in the face of the silence of these pillars. Your exhaustion melts away too. Only that singular soul, drifting between these two gatekeepers, remains. Now, as light breaks apart passing between the pillars, it traces a path before you that you have never seen this clearly before. This path calls you into an endless cycle, toward the threshold of that great final secret, where every beginning is an ending, and every ending is an immense new beginning. The silence thickens like a fog, and you slowly begin to shed the rigid forms of this physical world. The pillars fall behind you. The doors of the temple close quietly, and you drift toward that great secret where time is not a straight line, but a serpent endlessly swallowing its own tail. The Grand Master strikes the gavel against the wood 3 times. The work is done, he says, but the light will never go out in our hearts. And all the members take each other's hands. A chain forms, closed, complete, and no one wants to be the first to let go. Today, every relationship can be ended in seconds with an unfollow button. Bonds break this easily, this quickly, so perhaps this seems strange to you, maybe even childish. Holding on this tightly, resisting the breaking apart with this much determination. But you are right now standing in the very center of that dim hall, your brother's hand on your right in your palm, the hand of the one on your left in your palm. And this contact is something far more real than all the abstract symbols in your mind, than centuries of history, than complex rituals. A far more unshakable anchor point. The warmth of 2 hands. Nothing else is needed. You let go of that exhausting speed that resets everything in seconds, erases the past, and constructs an artificial future. You surrender to the reassuring stillness of this endless cycle. The checkered floor seems to ripple faintly beneath your feet, pulling you into this great wheel, into this infinite repetition. The smell of candles reaches your nose, smoky, catching faintly in the throat, but just as familiar. This scent can never be found in today's plastic and sterile offices, because it is the purest form of labor and time. The smell of something truly burning, truly being consumed. In the 18th century, while out in the streets, kings were being overthrown, new continents were being discovered, and the world was being turned upside down. For the men inside this room, time moved differently. Every meeting began with the same words, ended with the same prayers. A sacred circle. And this circle was like a shelter within the chaos outside. Unchanging, unshakable, continuing in spite of everything. The impatience of the present, which sees everything in terms of outcomes and tries to wrap up every process as quickly as possible, melts away entirely inside this circular ritual. You feel that invisible energy passing through your arms, that you are a link in that chain. And in that moment, in that exact moment, you are released from the heavy burden of your individual loneliness. Completely. Your breathing falls into sync with your brother's breath beside you. Your chest rises and falls with that wordless rhythm. In that era, when the door of the lodge closed, all the ranks of the outside world, all its conflicts, all its noise remained on the other side of the door. And right now, you two have left all your unfinished business, your unpaid bills, tomorrow's meetings, your endless to-do lists at that door. Inside, there is only this moment. In complete contrast to today's anxious culture, which records every moment, consumes every moment as content, and wants to fill every silence. Here you take refuge in the sheer grandeur of simply existing. A wordless and dignified grandeur. When you close your eyes, you seem to hear the sound of an enormous compass turning in the darkness. This sound merges with the pendulum of the universe's great clock, and your heartbeat slows. With each beat, you are drawn one step closer to the deepest layer of this historical stillness, to the peaceful embrace of that eternal present. In 950 BC, a master craftsman working on the construction of Solomon's temple set down his tools in a chest at the end of the day. That exhaustion in his hands, and that peace, good work done, completed, set down. Right now, as you remove the apron from your shoulders and place it in the most private corner of your mind, you feel the same thing, the same peace of finishing, the same calm of letting go. Unlike the sleepless nights beneath the bright and soulless lights of modern life, this dimness draws you toward the safest harbor of a waking dream. You are no longer just a spectator. You are a silent gear in the most ancient wheel of time. As the wheel turns, your anxieties scatter. Those never-ending worries about the future are swept up and dissolved into the air like dust on stone. Silence wraps the hall like a fog, and then the Grand Master strikes the final gavel blow on the table. A full sound, single, final. This is the moment time stops for you. The lights go out completely. The chain slowly dissolves. But the warmth of that contact still trembles in your palm. The warmth of those two hands. It doesn't leave. Inside this absolute darkness and absolute silence, you slowly grow lighter and drift. At the very end of this long journey, after all these stops, all these nights, all this history, there is no longer any need for word, no need for symbol, no need for explanation. There is only the most pure, most wordless, most eternal peace of simply being. One final drift toward that absolute and still emptiness beyond all of this story. Good night.